So I'm coming to the end of this single crochet row. I'm going to work a stitch in the last stitch, and now I'm going to do a sewn or invisible bind off. So first thing I need to do is cut the yarn and leave a tail long enough for sewing in, and then going to open up this live loop on the hook until the end pops out. Then I'm going to get a wool or tapestry needle and thread it, and then I need to have a little look at what's going on here at the beginning. So the whole principle behind a sewn bind off is we're going to imitate one of these front and back loops of a crochet stitch. And actually, if you've ever done any embroidery or any sort of sewing, it's a bit like doing a chain stitch in embroidery. So we're going to do a few things with the needle that your hook never does, but once you've practiced it a few times you will get the basic idea behind it, and it's very straightforward. So first of all, we need to bear in mind that we are making a mock stitch. We're making one of these tops, which means we need to skip a stitch, because otherwise we'll make an extra stitch and we'll have too many stitches. So first we need to read what's going on at the beginning of this row. Here we've got a little chain one that we made, which has almost virtually disappeared, which is not counting as a stitch. Then we've got our first stitch here. So our second stitch is there, because remember we have to skip a stitch because we are actually making one mock stitch. So the first time you do it, it does feel like this is a massive amount of distance, so to speak, that you're traveling, and it does seem all a bit wrong. But if you go through follow the process, you'll be surprised at how well this turns out. So we're threading that needle through, and what we've got here is we've made one of these front loops. So obviously this is quite big and baggy at the moment, and also this first stitch or whatever we've got going on here at the beginning is often detracting from what we're doing. So I've made a front loop, so we just want to get it roughly the same length as one of these front loops here. Then we need to turn the work round to the back. Now tilt the work forward so that you can see these front and back loops, and have another look at the one you've just made. This one here you've made, this is the last stitch you made. It's now on the left hand side because you've turned the work to the back. Where this front loop is coming out, the front loop you've made, your needle needs to go down in front of it, because you're at the back, needs to go down through the top of that last stitch next to this thread here, in front of it in fact, and as you come down, catch that back ridge of the stitch, which looks like a pearl bump, and then you are going to pull until that little loop that you've made looks, sometimes you have to give it a bit of a massage as well, so that it matches all of these. Now a very common problem you get is this last stitch, which is actually the first stitch you made of the round, sometimes sits a little bit high and tries to push up, and it sort of interferes with how this lays nice and flat. So sometimes you need to give that tail end quite a firm pull just to really squish down that first stitch that you made, so that it kind of gets out of the way. So now you can see, if you quickly glance at that, you wouldn't really be able to tell where I've started and ended the round, and that is the whole purpose of it and why it's called an invisible bind off. So this is obviously very unstable because it's not attached in any way, so I'm going to need to secure it very carefully. So you need to run it through at least 3 or 4 stitches, the legs of these single crochet rows, which is about 6. Each leg is made up of 2 strands, so you're going to do for about 6 or 7 strands. And what you've got to be careful of here is that as you're pulling it tight, you're not accidentally tightening the little mock stitch that you've made. you want to keep that the same size. Now to secure this, you need to catch a leg. If we go exactly back the way we've just come, we'll literally undo the sewing. So I'm going to catch this leg and then travel along a couple more, and then that, and then just pull everything to match the tension because you don't want to pucker anything. And then that is safe to trim. And then the start of the row, you want to, the tail end from the start, you actually want to sew that in the opposite direction so that you're not building bulk in one area by sewing everything into the same zone. So again, I'm doing 3 or 4 stitches here, which is about between 6 and 8 legs of the singles. Catch a leg and come back. And obviously this is the inside of the bag. It's the lining. It's going to be lined. Actually, you will see this, but you know, I think that that is perfectly acceptable. And that's what it should look like. So I'm at the end of this round. As promised, I will show you a sewn bind off again. So we cut the yarn, we open up this live loop till the end pops out. We get our tapestry or wool needle. We need to assess what's going on at the beginning here. So we've got a little chain here which is very squished and a bit distorted. We've got our first stitch there, which we're going to skip. We're going to go into the second stitch and pull it through, and here we've made our one of these front loops. A bit long at the moment, but we'll sort that out in a minute. Turn the work to the back. Now tilt the top of the work towards you. Take a look at this front loop you've made. Look at this last stitch that you made, and where this loop is coming out of there, the needle is going down in front of that, and you're catching the back ridge of the stitch, then you're pulling it tight. And here my first stitch that I made of the round is sort of getting in the way of this mock stitch that I'm trying to make, so I need to get the tail end and just pull it a bit just to squish and minimize that first stitch. Then that allows me to gently pull my mock stitch that I've made to match the rest of the stitches. And again, as I said, sometimes you just need to sort of massage it a bit to get it into shape. Now I am going to catch a leg and sew it along about 3 stitches, which will be about 6 legs or 6 strands of the border colour. Whoops, and now, oh, that's fine, I thought I'd pulled it too tight. Still looking good. Catch another leg, come back on myself, and trim. And start of the row, tail end, let's sew it in the opposite direction. If your end is too short, thread the needle first, put the needle into the fabric first and then thread it after. That's when a good fingernail comes in useful. If you want to carry on going the same way, but you want to get the same effect as going back on yourself, i.e. to make sure it doesn't come undone, you can actually just go back 1 stitch and split one of those legs. That has the same effect as changing direction. It's what stops things coming undone. Okay, that's done. Make sure it's matching gauge. Trim that off. Be careful not to cut the fabric. So the finished result is that it's quite difficult to actually spot where I've started or ended the rounds because of the invisible single crochet sewn bind off. And actually, if you like this bag, I have got an online course which includes step-by-step video instructions for every aspect, including lining the bag, and also includes photo tutorials and written instructions as well. If you check the link in the caption of this video, you can find out how to purchase it. Thanks for watching.